I made this tabletop 13 years ago by gluing thin bits of hardwood onto a tabletop made out of construction lumber. But unfortunately it's gotten too small for us now, so I need to make a bigger one. Now face jointed and jointed on both sides, I have my boards that make up enough width, and I'm going to glue them together in pairs that just barely still fit through my thickness planer. I had to use one of my long reach clamps to get these two boards flush with each other in the middle. I much prefer that to using dowels or something like that to line them up. With the glue drying on these pieces, I've been going through all of my small pieces of oak, picking out stuff that would be good for this sort of thing, and I'm going to resaw that into 5mm thick strips using a really thin table saw blade. I've been cutting and cutting and cutting pieces on the table saw, and I was wondering if I had enough. So I arranged the pieces on this workbench, which is almost the size of the table I want to make. And it looks like between this and this that I may have enough. I just squared off the ends of all of these and cut out the defective bits. And I think by now the glue is dry enough on these to run them through the thickness planer. I'm starting to glue on strips of wood like that, and I waited to explain what I'm doing because I don't really know what I'm doing. I made all these clamping cauls that actually split the force between 2 points so I can more evenly apply that with fewer clamps, but with the third row I'm already running out of range with the conventional clamps, and so for the next row I can only use my long reach clamps that I only have 4 of. And also, applying glue above your workpiece, not a good idea. I realized this was going to take way too long with just 4 of these long reach clamps, so I made 6 more simpler long reach clamps just for this glue up. I'm covering this thick spruce plank with thin strips of hardwood, like so, and I have to get those all tied up against each other so there's no gap. And then once it's all glued down, I'll plane that top flat. This one's done. Starting the next one, I have to make sure these start exactly flush here so that everything is straight and the next run lines up completely flush. Managed to get 3 strips on this one in one go, plus the 2 strips I just glued on here. So I'm finally making some progress gluing these up. Here's gluing up the middle of the last plank, and I ran out of long reach clamps, so I've been using these clamping cauls as sort of a lever to give me an extra 3 centimeters to reach that middle strip. I got my planks covered with thin pieces of oak, but I also want to cover the ends, and for that I have to cut this part back so that this ends up flush with the end. Just like I did for the ends of these boards, I want to cut the side with another piece of oak. So I'm going to cut away a rabbet here and then insert this piece there to cover it up. I'm getting very close to joining these three pieces together now. But before I do that, I need to plane these to final thickness. And I left a little bit extra on them in case I marred them up. You can see there's a bit of a ridge line there. And I left the pieces overhanging the ends because that way when I plane them, the planer snipe will be on the offcut, not on the actual table. Now I'm ready to join pieces together, and I've got these two, and this joint needs to close along the whole way, and the problem is there's very little flex in these wide boards. So these need to come together flush along the whole way. And that is a function of how precise the jointer is. In this case, my homemade wooden jointer. I also have to make sure this joint is flat along the whole way. And I was going to use my long reach clamps, but unfortunately they're maybe 2 centimeters too short to do that, even my longest ones. And this board does bow up a little bit in the middle, but 20 pounds on here is enough to force that joint flat right there. I'm forcing it flat just with a little clamp on the ends here. So now I'm confident that I can glue at least these two together. But before I do that, I'll cut the outside corners round on the bandsaw. Easier when it's smaller pieces. I filmed quite a bit about varnishing this table, but I'll put that in a separate video. And that turned out pretty nice considering that all the hardwood on here is essentially scraps.